Section 17 of Schopenhauer's Counsels and Maxims talks about the importance of making things, of overcoming resistance, of doing things, of being active for human happiness. In making these practical points, Schopenhauer touches on a couple of themes that I think would connect up with Pascal, looking backwards, and Nietzsche, looking forwards. Here's what Schopenhauer writes. Life consists in movement, says Aristotle, and he is obviously right. We exist physically because our organism is the seat of constant motion, and if we are to exist intellectually, it can only be by means of continual occupation. No matter with what, so long as it is some form of practical or mental activity. You may see that this is so by the way in which people who have no work or nothing to think about immediately begin to beat the devil's tattoo with their knuckles, or a stick, or anything that comes handy. The truth is that our nature is essentially restless in its character. We very soon get tired of having nothing to do. It is intolerable boredom. Okay, think here of what Pascal calls diversion. This impulse to activity should be regulated and some sort of method introduced into it, which of itself will enhance the satisfaction we obtain. Activity, doing something, if possible, creating something, at any rate, learning something. How fortunate it is that men cannot exist without that. A man wants to use his strength to see, if he can, what effect it will produce, and he will get the most complete satisfaction of this desire if he can make or construct something, be it a book or a basket. There is a direct pleasure in seeing work grow under one's hands day by day, until at last it is finished. This is the pleasure attaching to a work of art, or manuscript, or even mere manual labor. And of course, the higher the work, the greater the pleasure it will give. I think here in this connection of an observation Aquinas makes somewhere about the value of making, of actually creating something, creating music, creating some tangible object as an important element of happiness, of engaging with the real world and not getting locked up inside your mind. We can also see a connection here to Nietzsche in talking about the use of strength to overcome resistance as being part of what human nature is about. We are restless. We want to see, we want to exercise our will against the world that resists us, and to see something emerge gradually out of the activity of our will. That itself is a great pleasure that's magnified by the order and method that we bring to it by our philosophical reflection and our planning and our psychological self-discipline. Schopenhauer continues. From this point of view, those are happiest of all who are conscious of the power to produce great works animated by some significant purpose. It gives a higher kind of interest, a sort of rare flavor, to the whole of their life, which, by its absence from the life of the ordinary man, makes it, in comparison, something very insipid. Okay, getting definite Nietzsche vibes here. For richly endowed natures, life and the world have a special interest beyond the mere everyday personal interest which so many others share. And something higher than that, a formal interest. It is from life and the world that they get the material for their works, and as soon as they are freed from the pressure of personal needs, it is to the diligent collection of material that they devote their whole existence. So with their intellect, it is to some extent a twofold character, and devoted partly to the ordinary affairs of every day, those matters of will which are common to them and the rest of mankind, and partly to their peculiar work, the pure and objective contemplation of existence. And while, on the stage of the world, most men play their little part and then pass away, the genius lives a double life, at once actor and spectator. Fascinating image here of the kind of elitism that Schopenhauer is imagining, the idea of the great man set apart from the ordinary run of men with whom he shares common daily needs, set apart by his awareness that he can do great deeds. He has this ability which he needs to cultivate, and which he devotes his life to collecting the materials for cultivating and doing. Almost we've got the beginning of what Nietzsche will later call the pathos of distance that characterizes greatness in culture and in individuals, the kind of awareness of greater ability. And then Schopenhauer says here, this kind of double life that of the philosopher, the one who both acts in life, but then also is the spectator upon life, who engages, because he's able to, engages in this higher and objective contemplation of existence, who seeks not just to survive and to live and to thrive in a material and biological sense, but to know the world as it truly is at a spiritual level. So something of the spiritual elitism that characterizes the Nietzschean overman somewhat later. Let's continue with Schopenhauer then. Let everyone then do something according to the measure of his capacities. To have no regular work, no set sphere of activity, what a miserable thing it is. How often long travels, undertaken for pleasure, make a man downright unhappy, because the absence of anything that can be called occupation forces him, as it were, out of his right element. We might call that the misery of undirected leisure. Effort, struggles with difficulties, that is as natural to a man as grubbing in the ground is to a mole. To have all his wants satisfied is something intolerable, the feeling of stagnation which comes from pleasures that last too long. To overcome difficulties is to experience the full delight of existence, no matter where the obstacles are encountered, whether in the affairs of life, in commerce or business, or in mental effort, the spirit of inquiry that tries to master its subject. There is always something pleasurable in the struggle and the victory. And if a man has no opportunity to excite himself, he will do what he can to create one, and according to his individual bent, he will hunt or play cup and ball, or, led on by this unsuspected element in his nature, he will pick a quarrel with someone, or hatch a plot or intrigue, or take to swindling or rascally courses generally, all to put an end to a state of repose which is intolerable. As I have remarked, difficilis in otio quies, it is difficult to keep quiet if you have nothing to do. So that's the end of section 17. An interesting reflection here, both on the need to overcome difficulties. The full delight of existence of being alive is in overcoming difficulty. It's not in having all your desires satisfied. Happiness is not a kind of resting state that we achieve where we just sort of float on the pool with all of our needs met. Happiness, sort of the happiness of life, of living, is a matter of doing, of achieving, of overcoming. And that's the case both in the intellectual life and spiritual life and in the material and physical life. It's always a matter of making, of creating, of overcoming resistance, of overcoming entropy, we might say. So maybe shades here also, we can connect this with an observation of Aristotle's that we might ask of any man, with what activity does he fill his leisure hours? To be at leisure, we know this from Joseph Pieper, to be at leisure is to engage in a certain kind of activity, a certain kind of valuable activity. It's not simply to be idle, as Schopenhauer suggests here, sort of as an early psychologist. This would be misery to anyone, and most especially to the kind of man who knows he has greatness in him, who could do more, who was driven to collect materials from life for the creation of, the realization of some grand project. So that's chapter 17, section 17 from chapter 2 of Schopenhauer's Counsels and Maxims. I hope you found my comments on it rewarding. We'll look at section 18 next. Thanks for watching today. Goodbye.